Hello, and welcome to Thriving in the Age of Disruption with Dr. Ramesh Ramachandra. Today, Dr. Ramesh chats with Mr. Paul Tan, a professional services expert in assurance, taxation, and corporate advisory. Mr. Tan is the co-founder of professional services firm Creston ACA and has more than 25 years' experience in audit and assurance, tax advisory, corporate recovery, and mergers and acquisitions. He brings to the table his valuable insights from deep experience through the full business life cycle of starting, acquiring, managing, growing, and finally selling and investing in multiple businesses.
It's my pleasure today to introduce Paul Tan, someone I've known for a very, very long time. I think we met some 20 years ago on a Singapore Airlines flight to Mauritius. We were both attending ACCA, which stands for the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, global event. And he and myself and maybe two others made the Singapore delegation. So we spent about 4 to 5 days in Mauritius, got to know each other. He's funny. He says the most outrageous things with a straight face. And he is also a very good professional who has looked after my firms well under his care, because soon after that, I moved most of my business to him. The word that I have for Paul is that he's a visionary. In fact, he's ahead of his time. He will, of course, refute this description because he's modest at times. What strikes me as being visionary is just small details that I've known about him and how he has managed his own entrepreneurial journey. I'm excited that he's here and he's going to share with us about his own journey. Thank you, Paul, for being with us.
I am very far from being a visionary. Many of the decisions, whether I turn left, go straight, turn right, maybe even take a few steps back, most of the time is not through prior planning, through foresight or visions. Most of the time, if not all the time, is forced by circumstance, as in that situations calls for a certain decision and I make that decision. I take that path.
But that's an excellent attribute of someone who is entrepreneurial. They are in the thick of the game, whatever game they take on. And then circumstances force them to adapt. And we may look back now 20 years and say, oh, you're a visionary because of those choices that you made. But I'm sure at that point, it was a matter of almost life and death, or like you said, circumstances. I just had to make that decision. So spot on, really great that you highlighted that. I'd like to start off, Paul, having our listeners get to know you.
I would like to describe myself as I'm a people's person. I know it's very cliche, but seriously, I'm a professional. I run an accounting practice, and there is a real risk. Many clients do not see that risk, but there's a real risk being a public accountant. How do I mitigate or minimize my risk? I find that the best way is to have very loyal people working with you. So I identify the talent, I make them feel I love them and they love me, and everything else should fall in place. Whether I take a very complex, complicated, even high risk job engagement sometimes, and as long as I know my people executing it have my interest at heart, have the firm's interest at heart, then at least I know that my risk is already mitigated, is already minimized in that respect. So I strongly believe in that, and I have actually lived that since I started my business at a very young age of 29. At least from a public accounting point of view, not many other public accountants start their own practice on its own. You can find some of them joining as a partner, but no, I started my own practice at 29. That philosophy has served me well, which is choose the right talent, retain them, and everything else will fall in place. Your clients will be taken care of, your risk will be taken care of.
Wonderful. And then how about you at home?
I've got 2 sons. My wife, a working fellow professional. I play my part as a daddy to my 2 sons. They are young adults, and I'm so happy that they have grown up to be fairly fine.
I can hear that you're actually proud of them.
I am. I live my childhood in a one-room flat. And a one-room flat, for those who don't know, has got no room, basically. The hallway, the walkway is usually dingy and it smells. But look at where I am now. I live in a semi-detached house. I've come a long way. It's from sheer hard work and luck. So I'm very conscious of my background, where I come from. Many people who knows me says that, "Hey Paul, which batch are you in?" I say, "What do you mean? Which batch?" And they just assume that I'm from RI. I said, "No, I'm not from RI." "Then you must be from SJI." I said, "No, I'm not from SJI as well. I'm from St. Gabriel's. Have you heard of that school?" And they pause, and they most of the time they have not heard of the school. And from which I'm very proud. Alumnus, I give back almost every year within my means. If I can, I will help out.
So, Paul, I'm curious, how did you become an accountant? I mean, why accounting?
I became an accountant without knowing what bookkeeping or an accountant does. My grandfather would say, "What do you want to be?" I said, "I have no idea." "Do you want to consider being an accountant?" And in those days, he's in the naval base. He worked with chartered accountants from England and Wales, the ICAW, the British, and he finds everybody was very respectful of them. And he just told me that I should aspire to be an accountant. I became an accountant because of that. But I realized when I started my business and when I have to deal with entrepreneurs, young, old entrepreneurs, bosses who are successful in their own right, but yet have very little financial literacy. They don't read. There's a lot of rooms that I can educate them, and they become very appreciative. But it's rudimental to me, I mean, it's quite basic to me. A good friend of mine, very successful lawyer, for many, many years until he shared with me, he never paid up his visa bills, although he has the means, in full. And I was flabbergasted. I was like, "Huh? Why do you do that? Do you know what's the interest that you're paying for not paying up your full outstanding balance?" He says, "Oh, really? I thought the minimum payment is so much. I do see the interest and all that, but I never knew that I was paying 20 odd percent of the outstanding balance. Now they tell me, yeah, I will start doing that. I will start paying up in full." And this is just a simple example. And if I were to give you another mantra of mine, I always tell all the young people, don't spend more than what you earn. I am surprised that many people spend more than what they earn. Commit, that means their monthly installments alone, that fixed commitment is more than what they earn. And again, that takes me back, and I say, huh, how then can you live that kind of lifestyle? But they don't even think of the consequences. I say a simple rule of thumb is spend 80%. If you can spend lesser, yes, very good. But spend only up to 80% of what you earn, and you will lead a very uh, low stress,
Stressless.
stressless financial life. You will be more or less ready for any rainy days. And if you can't even make yourself do that, and I'm one of those, frankly, I buy insurance. Even my own insurance agent, financial planner, they call themselves now, even had to sort of slow me down in me buying insurance, because that's my way of locking up my savings, or forcing myself to save. So financial literacy is very important, and I really wish that upon all the young people, at least get that knowledge, and then if you still choose to lead a different lifestyle, you do it knowingly. The example I have given you, that lawyer who's in every sense of the word very educated, very knowledgeable, didn't even know that he's paying so much interest for not paying up all their visa bills. So that's my point. Many lay people do not even have basic financial literacy. All parents and all youngsters, go and get yourself educated, at least the basics of finance. And then once you get that knowledge and you choose not to follow that, that's your call. I'm not forcing it down the throat, but I say go get yourself that knowledge. It's very important.
How it shows up for me is that if we have financial literacy in today's world of disruption, it's actually a tool for enablement, because we've no idea how our lives are going to get disrupted, whether our jobs are going to be impacted. Paul, there was a story that you have about how you got started at 29 years old in running your own practice. Can you share that with the listeners?
I started off principally because I thought I was doing very well as an audit. Firstly, assistant, supervisor, then manager. My boss, my female boss, likes me. Well, at least I think she likes me. And whenever I deliver a completed engagement after I've done my work, she even either praise or like the feedback and the findings I've made. But what really irks me at that point in time, and I still can relate to it after 30 years, is that all these good findings which she agrees, most of it gets swept under the carpet, gets not recognized or not implemented after meeting up with the clients. So I said, if I'm going to live through these and I find that irks me, okay, that bugs me. And so I say, I might as well then practice on my own and make my own decisions. If I find these few findings and I choose to not include these findings, maybe because they are not that significant, whatever the case may be, my decision, at least it is my own decision. And so that's where I actually started. Say to many people, it's not as much brave as much as it is foolish. I'm only 29 and I do not have connections of my own, and I still take the plunge. Thinking back, okay, I would not encourage myself, my younger self, nor anybody in the same position to say, hey, take the plunge. But I did.
Are you serious, Paul, that you would not tell your younger self to take the plunge at 29, looking back now?
In today's day and age, the answer is yes. The regulatory environment is very different. The competition is very different. I was quite technically sound. But now, if you agree with me, or my listeners would agree with me, knowledge is not very valuable, at least compared to the past. Because of what? Of most people's best friend, Google. You can get most information just by Googling. Knowledge is not as valuable as when I first started out as a professional.
That's a very interesting thought. You're still in the business. Actually, from having started a practice, you went on to be entrepreneurial because there was a wave of consolidation that happened with public accounting firms. And you were part of that whole thing, going from a small firm to a medium sized firm, then aligning with international partners, and then subsequently selling out to investors. How did that all start? What were the circumstances that got you into that situation?
I started my firm with no clients, no staff, got in a client, got in one staff, and I grew from that level to a firm of 20 professionals. of which I'm very proud. It took me 10 years or so. Along that journey, there were many offers from my fellow professionals, from richer individuals who says that, hey, come join me or let me buy into your firm. I've always insisted no, because I was enjoying my little kingdom, calling all the shots. The first opportunity I had in acquiring the firm was again circumstantial rather than seeking out what to grow. But I knew also then that size matters, because in a professional outfit, as much as I try to be an all-rounder, to know everything myself, you need some specialization. And with specialization, you need to have a certain size. The first opportunity came about from my good friend, whose father is a public accountant and who has got his second stroke. Every time he needs to sign a check, the bank will have to call him to come to the bank. Luckily, the bank branch was just in the same building that the office was. When he was offered to me, because I know him from young, from school days, I said, Uncle, I don't have resources, not financial resources, nor inclination to want to buy your firm. But I've got friends who have always wanted to expand their business. Let me reach out to them. Then Uncle Tan says, yes, okay, thank you. So I got 2 bids for him. 2 of my friends put in the bid. He came back to me before even accepting or not accepting bids and said, oh, you match any of the bids, I'll sell it to you. I said, Uncle, if I wanted to, I would put in bid myself. He says, but I want to sell to you. I want you to take over. Okay, I tell you what, the lower bids, I give you 10% discount. I said, Uncle, it's not about the price, but okay, now you're telling me about the funding, is it? I'll make it easy for you to pay me, the payment terms. Long story short, that was my first acquisition. Professional services, we all have our own style, we all have our own way of managing clients and even staff. When the culture shock came in, it was with a lot of pain, but I managed to stabilize it with the help again of Mandy. Mandy has always been my stalwart, my real right-hand woman. With that, we managed to clear one acquisition. We're quite happy. And then the next one came about again by circumstance. I acquired 3 small practices before I was approached to sell my non-assurance by a venture capitalist, by a VC firm. And when that came about, greedily, I said yes to that, selling non-assurance, keeping only the audit practice. If there's any regrets in any of the business decision I made, I would have to say that comes as close to a regret as can be, simply because the team that I brought along, almost 20 of them, some 4 years ago, today, there's only 2 left in that firm. The others couldn't agree with the culture, and that includes me. Okay, it's not a bad firm, but it's just a totally different culture.
I have a similar experience where we did a merger with an organization which was 5 times bigger. The culture shock and integrating the teams is the biggest issue. At the end, if you can't keep the people and integrate them as part of this bigger outfit, you've paid top dollar for nothing. I have been a client of yours for now 20 years. There was one important piece that I valued, that you never talked down to me as a woman. You treated me and my business and what I was doing seriously, and you gave me very valuable advice. And I appreciated that. And when you were not available, you always had your right hand woman, Mandy, take care of me. I see you as a boss who has empowered women, especially in your firm. Would that be accurate?
I sincerely believe that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. You can put the same problem in front of a man and woman, the possible solutions and alternatives of how to solve this issue will be very different. And I enjoy that diversity, that different views. Even at the board level, I'm a very big advocate of having diversity. And diversity need not just be gender, as in male, female. An ideal board would not just have different skill sets, different backgrounds, but the diversity should also come from gender and age as well.
What I want to talk about now is your experience as a board member with this one company, Second Chance. Share a little bit more about how you've been associated with them, including the work that you do now with their foundation and how that came about.
I have a very strong affinity to Second Chance for several reasons. One, that was my first listed company, which I came on board, and then rest, like in Singapore culture, once you got some track record, the rest, the credibility factor, not many people will doubt you anymore. The first one is always the most difficult one, then, and subsequently it becomes a lot easier. I've been with Second Chance all these years, possibly coming to 20 years now. I look at the risk of the board of the company. And how do you look at the risk? Is it the nature of business? Is it many other aspects? I look at the main controller, the big boss. If he is, in my opinion, a reasonable person, he does not lead a lavish or decadent lifestyle, if you like, then naturally for me, the risk would actually be minimized. He's just an ordinary person, and his lifestyle is ordinary. That is the kind of board or listed company that not only would I be happy to be associated with, I'll be happy to invest in as well. So that's something which I found in Second Chance. For those who don't know, it's Muhammad Saleh. He's just set up a foundation. It's Muhammad Saleh Foundation. And I think it was very, very noble of him to set aside a substantial, if not significant, amount of his wealth and bequeathed it to the foundation. If you know about foundations and trusts, whatever has been bequeathed, the beneficiaries is no longer him or his family. And that's real, not just theoretical.
It's interesting that he actually took on making that significant donation. And how was the family about that? Were they supportive? I think it's great if the family had aligned eventually with discussion to give up their share of the pie to a greater good.
The end result is yes, I am very certain it was not just an easy discussion or decision. It was a long drawn process, but I'm very happy for his 4 children and him and his wife that they decided to do this.
We need more people like Mr. Muhammad Saleh, the founder of Second Chance, to be able to set aside their own wealth and not just looking at passing it on to their family as the key beneficiary, but to actually set it aside for the community so that they can do a bigger impact with the community. And so thank you, Paul, for highlighting this. I think it will be a great example for other families as well as corporates to follow. Paul, I want to also talk about the hat that you wear as an investor. So, can you share what's your new paradigm in terms of investment?
In my career journey, I have acquired and I've sold businesses. My latest and current sort of passion in terms of my profession or my career, my business is actually M&A, mergers and acquisitions. I'm doing it for my clients, doing it for both acting as a buyer for my clients or acting as a seller for my clients. I find it very fulfilling. The journey to closing, it's very agonizing. Nearly without exceptions, the journey to closure has got many twists and turns. For those who are in this space would just be nodding their heads and saying, yes, you're right. I continue to want to do a bit more of an M&A, not just for myself, but also for my clients, for both buyers and sellers. At the closing, they get a sense of relief and they get a sense of fulfillment, and so do I as a service provider. So that's the M&A. In terms of investments, run-of-the-mill investment as an accountant, and accountants don't make very good investors. Accountants don't make very good entrepreneurs. I say it again, sincerity. Really,
Because
I
you're
do.
risk averse?
Yes, because we are trained, we are indoctrinated that you always weigh your downside. You don't place too much weightage on the upside. You look at the downside and say that, hey, if the downside is this, if the worst case scenario, what happens? And so many good opportunities have passed by typical accountants like me. So I don't make very good investments personally. But there is a new world order for those who are not aware, and that is the metaverse, the cryptocurrencies, and the blockchains. They are all interlinked, they are here. It's still at the nascent stage. In the last 5 years, there are not many governments, public acceptance, but is gaining a lot of acceptance in the last few months, if I were to say. So for those who have not looked into this space, I would encourage them to at least read up a little bit. Know what, judge for yourself. Yeah, come to a conclusion yourself. But my conclusion is this, okay? Cryptocurrency has a role to play in modern society. Blockchain definitely is an important part of business going forward. Cryptocurrency has a very big role to play. Whether metaverse, and depending on which aspect of metaverse, and some are saying that play to earn, that's one of the sort of aspect of metaverse, right? Has a role to play. I think so too, but yet I'm not recommending or encouraging people to go into that area, because I can't imagine if even a small but yet significant society, aspect of our society, especially the young, those who are in their late teens and young adults, are just gaming away, yet earning. I mean, what would this world become if there are too many people making a lifestyle and making a living out of the metaverse? Which, another way of putting it is virtual reality, it's not reality.
I want to talk about another emerging aspect which is impacting companies. And I know that you are someone who, with your firm at least, you're in the forefront with sustainability and ESG compliances. Could you share a little bit with our listeners? What's the implication of that for companies?
Thank you very much for bringing this up, because this is another pet topic of mine, sustainability. Now, in the past, and probably still to many people, business entrepreneurs and businessmen, what's to them sustainable, or how to run or how to build a sustainable business? Most of them, and even today, they would say be profitable. But the bigger picture is that being a profitable company need not necessarily lead to being a sustainable company. Profitability is not nicely or narrowly equal to sustainability. We have to break it up into the three acronyms. ESG, it stands for environment, social, as well as governance. The governance deals with the profitability part. You must put up enough controls, you must put up enough governance so that the company can actually be run profitably, be run properly, with proper governance, with proper controls, so that it will be able to generate some level of respectable profits. So this is just one aspect. What about the E and S? E especially, to many people, it is a cost. If you want to take care of the environment, whilst from a company's point of view, it means cost. But you have to, because it is sustainable, without which, if you don't, then you're just living for your generation. You're just living for today. You're not taking care of the bigger picture, the environment, the space that you are operating in. It's an uphill task when I got into this space, in especially the listed company, in trying to convince bosses, top honchos, that they have to put in place and they have to spend some money to take care of the environment that their business is impacting. Really, it is cost, but it is necessary. You don't say, for example, I want to start a business. Must I buy a computer? Must I invest in a laptop? That's cost, but that's necessary cost. So I want entrepreneurs and bosses to say that these are necessary. Don't even talk about the cost benefits, the S part. Again, many people say that, yeah, when we do budgeting, we set aside 1% or whatever percentage to give back to society, to give back to the community in terms of charitable cause. And that's obviously good. But the social factor of ESG is encompasses much, much wider than just giving back to society. It deals with diversity, in embracing diversity. Do you have an open policy of recruiting, if you like, LGBTQ, for example? Open policy. People of this inclination joins you. You don't not just straight away reject them. Actually, you'll be more than happy to engage them. And if they're suitable for the role, then so be it. And don't even just hide them in one corner. Announce it happily and proudly to the rest of the team members. I feel that's one of them. But I've also mentioned earlier that I strongly like diverse views or contradictory views. And that comes from the different gender, the different age group. I sincerely, again, have been learning from the young because their values and their outlook are different. Some of them I roll my eyes, I'll tell you the truth. But I constantly take on board these views, you see, and I have to constantly adjust my expectations and perspective also because of them. So the word sustainable, just reflect on it. What is a sustainable company? What's a sustainable country? What's a sustainable world? It all comes into play nicely. It's not just about profits.
We've been working with family businesses, and because of the work we're doing with a specific family business who took on this whole agenda of sustainability and ESG. And what they did was that they came up with what they call as the 3 Ps to measure their impact in society. The first one was about planet renewal, looking at their manufacturing to see where it is consistent with that whole planet renewal, with whether they had to change processes, change whatever kind of supply chain that they had. Next was to look at prosperity sharing. And this was interesting, I thought, because instead of looking at it as a measure of them as a company just with profitability, but they are focusing on what is the bottom of the pyramid, the last 40%. How are they sharing in the prosperity? How are they moving upwards? And the last one was their commitment to people development, and that every human being, whether they are senior or junior, has an opportunity to develop themselves and to their highest potential. Paul, can you share with me about your own spiritual journey?
I find that perception of the spiritual side of things changes as you age, and not necessarily you get more religious as you grow older. Most people do, but not necessarily. And it depends on your the different experience and different aspects of life that you encounter in that sense. Just to answer your question, Ramesh, I'm a God-fearing man. That is my tagliner in my WhatsApp. And I really, really believe that I fear God more than I love Him. And because I fear Him, I keep myself in check. I think there is a very strong correlation between a God or religion and ethics. And I'm a professional, I'm a public accountant, and I have got ethical codes. And it is aligned with my religion. And I think any major religion. And that is to do the right thing when no one is watching you. That's being ethical, that's being religious. And if you're not, let's say, religious, or you got no spiritual inclination, then your focus, I feel, will be very different. You will just want the best for yourself. No, not even just being selfish, but that's the right thing to do as a business person. You think that you have got an idea that your competitors or your fellow practitioners do not know of, you do it without the consideration of, is that good for the society? Is that good for your people? And that again goes back to what I hear just now from you, and I love it. This Vietnam company is giving back to society. It's a vicious cycle reverse. Vicious cycle is usually used in a negative way, but the more you want to do for your customers, your clients, or the general public, the more business you get. But that's not very convincing. That's not easy to convince bosses. But it is true. You just have to try it. Set aside some time and resources, and you realize the more you want to do for the community and society, it will bounce back a lot more to you. So that's
Yeah. I love that. I think it's really great that we can have a relationship with God where in fearing Him, He provides for us that framework to operate within with integrity and within that ethical framework.
yes, you have to be accountable, right?
Another question for you. Is it possible to live a simple life?
It depends on the environment that you're living in. I would say that it's easier to live a simple life not in a modern society. So if I live in a village with very little access to the metaverse or the internet, my neighbors are all happily fishing, singing under the coconut tree. That's a happy and simple life. If I'm surrounded by neighbors like that, unfortunately, if my neighbors have got 82-inch television, and that's again a real one. My neighbor has an 82-inch television. I'm now aspiring to get the 82-inch televisions. Drive a Ferrari, and he makes it known to the surrounding neighbors because every morning, at least for a good 2 to 3 minutes, he will just be warming up his Ferrari, and all of us know that he's going out to work because it's so loud. I don't aspire to own a Ferrari, but I would love it if Ramesh wants to present me a Bentley. Okay, but anyway, my point is that if you live among these people, and I'm a human, I'm not strong enough to say, so what? I don't care what my neighbors and my friends having or aspiring to be. I choose to lead a simple life. And even if I'm strong enough, I'm not. What about my children? What about my spouse? What about my immediate family? They would say that, hey, why don't you want to do better for yourself? Why don't you want to do better for your immediate family members? So, to answer your question, is it easy to live a simple life? I would say not so in modern Singapore. It's not easy to lead a simple life. I would love to lead a simple life. I would love that I am less ambitious or less greedy, but I continue to be greedy. I continue to move my goalposts. Many years ago, I said that if I made my first million, I'll be contented and I will choose to retire. I've gone past that goalpost a few times. So this is where I am.
So, how would you describe thriving?
As you thrive, try to keep a balance. Try to continue to be happy, contented to as much an extent as possible. And then you can continue to thrive. But if you are thriving, but you are stressed out, you're unhappy with your lot, if your family is not intact, then however you want to define your own thriving, that's not thriving to me.
Thank you very much, Paul, for being very generous and sharing with all of us, your wisdom, your experience, and your journey.
Thank you, Dr. Ramesh and Mr. Paul Tan, for the important reminder that thriving, in all sense of the word, includes our financial health. And as Mr. Tan has called out, starts with empowering ourselves with financial literacy. Next up, we have Ms. May Sim, who explores with Dr. Ramesh thriving from a completely different perspective. Ms. Sim is the region's premier psychological astrologer and is known for her practical and structured approach to applying astrology towards achieving personal purpose and fulfillment. Be sure to join us for our next episode.